Imagine these two opponents fighting each other in-game. They're both equally skilled at everything except for aiming. They're using the exact same weapon and character, yet the worst aimer's gun is only doing 20 effective DPS, while the good aimer's weapon is doing a massive 100 effective DPS. Purely through improving their aim, it's as if the good aimer is wielding a legendary, pay-to-win, max level weapon that does 5 times the damage of the bad aimer's default gun. And that's why improving your aim can be so appealing. You can inject this extra potency into any FPS game you play. The aiming skill cap is so high, and depends on a wide range of variables, some of which are totally external too, like which mouse or mousepad you use. Honestly, it can be a bit overwhelming, so the goal here is to visualize the aim journey and to show you how the different variables will affect your trajectory. In this graph, we have aim on the left, the higher the better, and on the bottom we have time. So we're looking at how your aiming ability changes over time. If you are a casual player that is gaming just for fun, you will have some beginner gains that start to plateau relatively early. You'll quickly settle into your aiming ability, and further improvements to your gameplay will mostly come from your familiarity with the game and not from improving your mechanics. For an engaged player, so someone that is striving to improve, is rarely autopiloting and seeks knowledge, they'll find that their aim initially improves quickly, and while the rate of improvement will slow down, the path toward a plateau or even regression is much further away. That's a simple overview, so next, let's build our own aimer who is striving to get as close to the aiming skill cap as possible. We're going to assume that over time, they're doing their best to improve with what they have. As we go along, we'll add in variables and see what the impact is. Currently, our aimer's progression looks very odd. There are some initial improvements before quickly hitting a low plateau that suffocates any further progress. The aimer is on a high DPI of 3200 and is playing games on their default settings, which often results in extremely fast sensitivities of around 3 to 5 cm per 360. Despite their best efforts, it wasn't possible to overcome the mechanical limitations of using these settings. In another timeline, they discovered the benefits of lower sensitivities and why the vast majority of professional players use them. For example, Overwatch has a pro average of 33 cm, CSGO is 53 cm, and Apex is 38 cm. Our aimer is now playing on something in that range, and experienced a huge performance boost, greatly increasing their baseline ability and removing that mechanical limitation so they can now improve over time. Next, they optimized their in-game settings to reduce their input lag, which helped to make their aim feel as responsive as possible. They did this by lowering the graphics, playing on exclusive full screen and turning off VSync, but perhaps keeping some options like shadows or anti-aliasing when needed. This resulted in a smaller but noticeable improvement. They are currently aiming with their wrist planted on the edge of the desk, which puts them at risk of injury in the future and limits their range of motion. After learning how to aim with their hand, wrist, and arm in unison, their aiming ability jumped up again. A new, lighter weight mouse with a great shape for the aimer provided another boost. Although it is possible that a new mouse or change in variable could be for the worse, lowering your aiming performance. It's also possible that your performance could temporarily dip while you adjust to that new variable, before ascending higher than what was previously possible. A new, well-suited mousepad provided our aimer with a similar benefit. The next biggest boost after the mouse sensitivity change was learning to properly focus on targets, rather than simply looking at them or the crosshair. There are plenty more variables, but you sort of get the point. Optimizing each component of your aiming toolkit can provide instant and permanent improvements to your aiming performance, even though your actual mouse control or ability hasn't changed. If we compare our engaged aimer who is only playing on a reasonable sensitivity to our aimer that has optimized many more variables, we can see a significant gap in their performance, despite the fact that their mouse control mostly remains the same. I'll quickly reiterate that this is simply a visualization, so don't take the curve and jumps too literally. But what about more generalized optimizations, or even genetics? We can think of these like multipliers. If our aimer has great aiming genetics, their progress may start out higher and grow faster. If you work on your sleep, diet, and exercise, you'll similarly increase the height of your entire curve. The same goes for aim training. You're primarily boosting your mouse control, which increases your baseline aiming ability. These multipliers can also be negative. If your sleep, diet, and exercise is terrible, your baseline may be shifted down, so all your hard-earned improvements, while still valuable, don't mean as much as they could. To wrap things up, let's compare our different aimers. We have our casual aimer with a low and gentle curve, our engaged aimer who isn't being limited by an excessively fast sensitivity, the engaged aimer with optimized variables, and finally the engaged aimer with optimized variables and positive multipliers from their lifestyle, aim training, and genetics. Something that is very clear is that it takes very little effort to surpass the average casual FPS gamer, and that isn't to disparage them. It's perfectly okay to enjoy something without feeling the need to strive to improve. I've played golf with family and friends, and while I can casually enjoy it, I don't have that drive to learn the sport and improve, so it would take very little for someone more engaged in the sport to perform better than I do. Being engaged with a drive to learn is the most important variable of all. Even if improvements are slow, so long as you are consistently improving, before too long, you will be able to notice a remarkable difference in your ability. In a similar vein, the smaller variables by themselves may not be too noticeable, but when you have optimized many of them, the cumulative effect is incredible. And finally, we can appreciate the power of multipliers. Ultimately, aim comes down to a blend of cognitive and physical performance. To best be able to move that mouse sensor around to aim on screen, it is in our best interest to have our body and mind functioning efficiently. Having perfect health and training is unreasonably difficult for the vast majority of people. Instead, I would encourage everyone to consider the 80-20 rule, where 80% of an outcome is a result of 20% of the input. Going to the gym or for a run a couple of times a week can feasibly net you 80% of the potential benefits. You don't need to be smashing yourself 7 days a week for that extra 20%. The same goes for diet, sleep, aim training, and so on. Something is better than nothing. A little effort goes a very long way. A lot of effort only takes you a little further. The culture of needing to grind 8+ hours a day to be a pro gamer is incredibly misguided. It may sound a little cliche, but have you heard this version of a common quote? Perfect practice makes perfect. I would go as far as to say that 1 hour of focused, engaged, and purposeful gameplay with the intent to improve is superior to grinding 10 hours a day. You simply cannot stay in that mindset for so long without it slipping away or degrading. You even run the risk of committing mistakes or suboptimal choices to your memory and game sense in general. This doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't play for extended sessions, but it's probably a good idea to categorize your time into learning focused periods and then switching off a little for general gameplay. If you would like to directly support me in making more videos, please consider becoming a channel member. It's basically a Twitch sub for YouTube, so you gain access to emotes, badges, and all sorts of perks like a members only Discord where we can chat about all things aim, gaming, and improvement. If you're interested, there's a link in the description, or depending on your device, there may be a join button below the video. Let me know in the comments below which variables you find to be most important. Thanks so much for watching, be sure to subscribe for more content like this, and I'll catch you in the next one.